right now, for example, I'm in my home studio and it's an alcove with no walls at the top of the stairs because it's so quiet here. I don't need walls.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that's nice. But so I moved to Vermont in 2005. And even though I started doing radio here full time, I was when I moved, I had a gig voice tracking for some stations on the West Coast. So I kept voice tracking for KFOX, which was a classic rock station in the Bay Area, for like 12 years after I got here, which was fun and kind of amusing as well.
Back on the West Coast, because you started. Did you start in Santa Barbara or where?
I did start in Santa Barbara. Now, I was born and raised in Berkeley, California, which, as I like to say, ill prepared me for reality. But it was an interesting city to grow up in and listen to radio in. I grew up listening to the top 40 battle between KYA and KFRC, which was a real knockdown drag out. KFRC had a puny little signal compared to KYA, but I think it was Drake Chenault. So they were the boss jocks, and they came in and they kicked butt. But that wasn't the only top 40 around. There was also KDIA, which was a soul station, the sister station of WDIA in Memphis. So I got to hear a lot of soul music over there. And then I did not actually, I hate to say it, I didn't hear KMPX, the freeform, when it first signed on. But after they had the strike and went over to KSAN, I did start listening to Tom Donahue and that crew over there. So grew up listening to radio. Moved to Santa Barbara in my high school years. My dad got a job at the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions, which was pretty great for him. And it was a pretty nice town. And started out at KTYD in Santa Barbara, which was a freeform station. They had a listeners become announcers contest. And I figured out who the hosts were going to be among the jocks that they had. So I made sure to play all their favorites in my list that I put together. And that's how I got the gig.
Even then, curating and understanding radio, how radio works, and what people want to hear.
Well, at least I tried. That was the interesting thing about K-Tide. It was freeform, but you weren't really allowed to be super self-indulgent. We had a huge record library, and the jocks would mark each track that they liked with their initials. So you could kind of go through and see who liked what and, get some recommendations and put together a show that represented everybody's taste that was on the staff. And hopefully that was going to work for the audience. And in fact, it did. At one point, we generally dominated, but at one point I was pulling a 33 share on the weekends. It was pretty fun.
All right. So again, the 33 share, well, please explain that, what a share means. Just so
okay.
Really
a share is
the insanity of what that actually means.
It's a percentage of the listening audience. So of the people that listened to that weekend show, it was a weekend show. I did like overnights and then some weekends. So it's a percentage of the available audience, the people that have their radios on. So 1/3 of the people that had their radios on in that town were listening to my Saturday show.
So you think about all the radio stations that were on the air, it was not, and a third of them, it was how many stations? Like maybe 40.
This was before the 80-90 docket and the early 80s. So there were fewer stations then, but yeah, we did get KMET from Los Angeles. We got KBBY out of Ventura. So there were maybe 15, 20 stations available. And to be fair, I had a tremendous lead in. We had an oldies show on the weekend, and that show was super popular. That jock wound up being a city councilman. That's how popular he was.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, was it Art LeBeau? Who was the?
No, a guy named Jerry DeWitt, but he pulled a 35 share. So I actually wasn't doing quite as good as him.
He dragged him down. So you had the Super Bowl entry, as a lead in. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. And it kind of ties into what was happening at that point in music as well. In that,
what year was this, by the way?
Well, I started in 76, but we're probably talking about 78, 79 now by the time that I was actually getting some primetime shows. Originally, I was emergency late night fill-in. What do you expect? I was a kid that won the contest.
You just happened to be there.
Yeah. And willing to do anything. So about 78, when I was doing that show that got the great ratings, what I was doing was I'd play an oldie song like maybe some Shirelles and then segue into some Blondie. And so I was consciously frequently making the link between new wave music and classic 60s rock and garage rock. And, that music was catching on at the time and ties into the subject of your podcast today, KROQ.